All right, welcome to part four, or part four. Welcome to part two of the zombie tutorial. A few things I want to change real quick before we continue. So, real fast, let's change back here in the behavior tree. We want to set this wait time to be something less than 5 seconds because that's why there's kind of like a delay whenever you get close to him. So let's change this to like 1 second. And then we also want to change, if we click on idle, we want to change the observer aborts to be self, and it's basically saying that we're allowed to abort out of this state if something changes, like if he sees the player. And we also want to do the same for this one. So select the chasing and say observer aborts and set it to self. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to make it so the zombie's a little bit slower than the character, just so we can kind of see that it works whenever you run away from him. So if we go to the zombie, we go to the character movement, and we search for speed up here at the top. Let's just set it down to like 300 for right now, just so it's really slow, so it's easy to get away from. And if we run it now, you can see he's not going to attack us because we're not close enough. But once we get close to him, he'll start attacking us. And then once we get far enough away, he'll kind of give up. Now, obviously, we probably want to make it a bigger distance than that, but I just kind of wanted to show you how it would work. So I'm going to set this back to the perception distance back to like 2500, so it's a little bit more realistic. File and save all. All right, so let's try this now with a few more zombies than just one, just so I can kind of show you a potential problem here. So if you hold down Alt and then you drag, it will actually make a copy. And then if you like let go of Alt and do it again, it will just keep making copies. So let's make like 10 of them real quick. I'm just going to Control click to select more than one, and then Alt drag. So now we have 10. Now if we run this now, you can see they're running at us, but if you can tell, they're kind of like jittering around a little bit when they turn. They like, yeah, they just like lag. It almost looks like they lag or something. And so we can fix that. It's actually pretty easy. It took me like an hour to figure out. But if you go to the BB Zombie and you go to, am I recording? Yes, I am. And you go to the class defaults. I think it's class defaults. And you search for y'all. Yes, search for y'all. We want to unselect use control y'all rotation. And I think, hold on, let me check my other project because I always mess this up. Yeah, and then we go to the character movement component, and if you search for rotation, we want to use controller desired rotation. I set that to true. So now with those changes, if we run this again, you can see now they rotate nice and smoothly towards us, and it all works pretty well and smooth. And you can see they're staying spread out from each other, and they're doing that because we're using that Detour Crowd AI controller, which is helping it, figure out how to do that. Now, there's another thing that's worth mentioning at this point. You can see all these zombies have shadows to them, and it does look nice, but shadows are actually extremely expensive, especially dynamic shadows like these. So if you find yourself having a performance impact when you have like 100 zombies, I mean, you're going to have a performance impact when you have 100 zombies just because it's 100 freaking zombies. But a really good way to save on performance is to turn off shadows on zombies. And so I'm just going to do that for the sake of this tutorial. If you want to do that in yours, that's fine, depending on how many zombies you have. You could also write some system that kind of turns it on and off based on how many zombies you have. But I'm just going to turn it off because they're not needed, and it saves a bunch of processing power, and you get a lot more frames. So if you can do that real easily by clicking on the mesh and searching for a shadow, and just disabling cast shadows. And it doesn't look that bad, especially if you had stuff on the ground like grass and stuff. You probably would not even be able to tell that there's no shadows on these guys. But that's just something I noticed because the hordes, really hurt your performance sometimes. And if you turn off shadows, it helps a lot. All right. So now we have that kind of set up and ready to go. Let me think about what the heck is next at this point. Because there's a lot of things in this tutorial. So I think at this point we can start making those systems that I talked about before for like creating events and stuff. So to do that, I'm actually going to load up that other map. And again, if you guys don't have that map, it's no problem. You can do exactly what I'm doing just on a different map or in this map. But I just find it a little bit easier to work with an existing map when I'm showing you guys how to do it. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'm going to edit it out just so you guys don't have to watch that. So I'll be back in a second. All right, so I have the other map loaded up, And again, you don't need this map to follow this tutorial at all. You can have a different map, or you can stay on the map where you're currently on. And all I did to add it, if you're curious, is I just went to my library and I clicked add to project on the modern city download, whatever. And then I selected my Horde project and it just added it. And then all I've done is open up the map. So I haven't done anything else. I don't want to fool you guys. I just like this map for testing on and showing you guys because it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and it kind of already has some little alleys and whatever to set up to show good examples for. All right, so the next thing we want to do, maybe actually real quick, is set it up so we can shoot the zombies and kind of kill them, just so it gives it a nice little vibe to the game. And also, like, I need a way to kill zombies because that's going to be part of our director system, since he keeps track of how many zombies are alive at any given time. So we already have a gun, which is kind of nice. So I'm just going to add some quick code. So we go into the first person blueprint, blueprints, and first person projectile. Just want to add some logic in here that checks if it hit a zombie, and if it did, then go ahead and kill the zombie. Now, there's definitely better ways to do this in your game as far as like killing things and applying damage, but that's not the point of this tutorial. I have other tutorials that cover damaging things and like interfaces, because you probably should create an interface for something like this. But I'm just going to do this real simple here. I'm just going to take this other actor that we hit and check to see if it's a zombie by casting. So cast to BP_zombie. And so if it is a zombie, we want to do a couple things, or well, one thing, we just want to kill the zombie. So to do that, we need to write a little kill function inside of the zombie blueprint. So come back here to zombie, go to the event graph, and then actually don't really need, well, we do need begin play, we will later, so let's leave that one, but we can delete the others. Then we'll say add custom event, and we'll call this kill. And so inside of here, we want to basically just kill the zombie. And the way I did that is I just ragdolled him, basically, and then eventually deleted him. So the first thing you need to do whenever you kill something that's running a behavior tree is you need to stop the logic on the behavior tree. Well, I should be more specific. You don't need to do this if you're immediately just destroying the actor, because that will stop it as well. But since we're ragdolling the actor and then destroying it sometime later, we want to stop the logic on the behavior tree so that the behavior tree isn't running while the character is ragdolling, because there's no reason for it to. So to do that, we can use this get AI controller, and we need to specify the controller that, or the controlled actor, which in this case is just ourselves. So we'll say get ref to self. We'll give us this little self node, and then we can drag off this, and we can get the brain component. So get brain component. So the brain component is the thing that runs the logic or the behavior tree. And we can drag off this and say stop logic. And it asks for a reason here. You don't actually need to specify it. I don't really know what this is used for. We can just leave it empty. All right, so now we've stopped the logic on the behavior tree. The next thing we want to do is set it so that he's ragdolling. So if we drag in the mesh, we can say select or set collision profile name, and we want to set it to ragdoll. So ragdoll. And then in order for ragdoll to work, the mesh needs to be simulating physics. So we can drag off this again and say set simulate physics, and hook that up. I'm just going to make a little reroute node by double clicking and simulate to true. And then we also want to disable collision for the capsule component, because otherwise, if you look, if you imagine if this mesh started ragdolling, well, the capsule component is just going to stay right here. So it'd be kind of weird because you could still walk into the zombie even though he's ragdolling on the floor. So we want to just disable collision for the capsule. So back over here, drag in the capsule component, and we'll say set collision profile name. And we'll just set it to no collision. Knock that up. So now the zombie is going to be ragdolling on the floor, and he's not going to have any collision on his capsule component. But we want to give him time to kind of ragdoll and lay on the ground for a little bit before we actually go ahead and destroy the zombie. And we need to destroy the zombie because mostly for performance reasons, you can't just have a bunch of dead actors laying around in the scene, or it's going to kill your frame rate. So we'll add a little delay here. So we'll say delay, and it'll make it like 5 seconds or something. You can make it longer or shorter in your game, but as long as there's some delay and then he eventually gets deleted, it should be okay. And then once he's destroyed, we want to call, or once he's chilled out, we want to call destroy actor. And the actor we're destroying is ourselves, so we can just leave the target set to self. And then we're good to go. So back here in our, where were we? First person projectile. So back over here, again, if it's a zombie, we would just want to call that kill function we just wrote. So we'll say kill. And then we want to continue doing whatever it did before. And we also want to do that if it's false. So make sure you drag false down here as well. So something like this. Yeah. So now if we file save all, and let's try running this. Oh, we need to add a little zombie here to test this out. So back in your world, whatever world you're using, doesn't matter. Drag in a BP zombie somewhere, if you don't already have one. And then I'm just going to play it. So let's see what happens if I shoot this guy. Oh, it goes right through him. So that's probably because the collision is not set up correctly on the projectile. So if we go back to our projectile, go to the viewport tab to see what's going on. So it's this ball, and then it has this cylinder or the sphere around it. If we click on the collision component, and we scroll down to the collision preset, you can see it's set to custom. Let me see what I have it set to in my other game, just to make sure. Collision. So we definitely want to set it to not ignore the pawn. I'm just making sure if there's anything else. No, I don't think so. So we just want to change this from pawn. We want to change it from ignore to block, so that way it actually hits pawns, because our zombie is a pawn. I'll save. Run this again. Oh, I fell through the floor because that was too low. Right from here. So let's see if we hit our zombie. You can see he goes ragdolling, and then eventually, after 5 seconds, he will delete. And again, if the zombie looks weird when he's ragdolling, if the zombie looks weird when he's ragdolling, it's just because, I'll just show you real quick so it makes more sense. If we go to our zombie folder, and you go to resources. So this physics asset got created by Unreal. Whenever you import something, it creates one for you. Except it doesn't do a very good job. You can see it's like kind of bloated and weird. So you could come in here and adjust this and make it more accurate. If you want to see a more accurate one, to get an example, you can look at the third person or the mannequin. So let me see if I can find that one real quick. Meshes. Where is this thing? Here. Oh, well, I only have the arms. I forgot. But this will kind of give you an idea. You want to make these boxes around it as, accurate as you can. I haven't really done a lot with physics assets, but if you have a good model, then it will look a lot nicer. Otherwise, you're going to have to modify this one to make it look nicer. But yeah, so he's killing, and I keep doing that. He gets killed, and he gets deleted, which is nice. Where am I? Over here. Okay. And then he gets deleted, which is nice. All right, so at this point, we can now work on our director. So what the director does is it keeps track of how many zombies are in your game, and it makes sure that there's not too many of them. Now, you could also add a lot of other functionalities to the director, because it's going to be set up. I'm going to show you how to set up in such a way that it keeps track of all the zombies that are in your game, and every time a new one gets created, he's aware of it, and every time one dies, he's also aware of it. So you can set him up to do a lot of other cool things and other cool events in your game as well. So we need to create the director next. So let's come back here and let's make a new folder. So new folder, we'll call it director. And inside of here, let's make a new blueprint. So we'll say blueprint class, and we'll call it, we want it to be of type actor, and we'll call it BP_director. So double click on this to open it up. And inside of here, we want to add in the begin play. So go to the begin play. We essentially want to check how many zombies are currently in the world when the game starts, and add those to an array so that we can keep track of them. So begin play. We'll make a little sequence node. Well, actually, not yet. We'll just say, drag over this, we'll say get all actors of class. And I know a lot of people are probably freaking out because this node has a lot of negative association with it. But this actor's totally fine to, or this node's totally fine to use, as long as you're not using it like inside of an event tick or frequently in your game. But as you can see here, I'm just using it once inside of begin play, so it only gets ran once inside the begin play. And since it's at begin play, it's during initialization of your game, so you're not even going to see it. It's totally fine to use it in a case like this. So we want to get all the zombies in our game. So the actor filter will search for BP underscore zombie. And then we actually want to loop over these and call a little function that we're going to write because we need to bind to stuff about them. So over here on the left, let's create a function. So make a function and we'll say on zombie spawned. And this function needs to take in the zombie that just got spawned. So click on it and add inputs. And we'll say it's going to take in a BP zombie. And we'll rename this to zombie for the input parameter. And we want to make this private. So we'll say private. Category is also private as well, just to keep it organized. So you can see now it's under a private category. So back here in the event graph, we're going to drag off this and say for each. So for each zombie that's in our world, we want to call on zombie spawned and hook up the array element, which is the zombie, into the parameter. So if we come inside of here, the first thing we want to do is we want to add this zombie to an array of zombies so that we can keep track of it. So to do that, I'm just going to right click on this and say promote to variable, and we're going to call it the zombies, and then we're going to change the type of it to an array. So we can click on it, and then over here, change this to an array, and say yes, change variable type. And so we can just delete this, and we'll drag it in again. So delete it, drag it in, except say get, and we want to say add, like that, and hook these up. So we're essentially just saying whatever zombie they pass, we want to add it to this array. And then we also want to bind to the zombie's kill event so that we know whenever the zombie is killed, because we want this array to be updated if a zombie is, shot dead in our game. We want the AI director to be aware of it. So to do that, we need to make an event dispatcher inside of our zombie, which kind of, broadcasts this event that says, hey, I died, and the director will be listening for it. And whenever, he receives the message, he'll remove it from the array. So to do that, like I said, we need to go to our zombie real quick. And we just need to make a little event dispatcher for when the zombie is killed. So over here on the left, we can hit this event dispatcher, and we'll say on killed. And then we want to call that whenever the zombie dies. So make sure you're inside of this kill event, and go all the way to the right. And then right before you delete the actor, we want to drag in this on killed and say call. And so this is letting, whoever is listening to it, which just happens to be the AI director, that the zombie was killed, and they can do whatever they want. So now inside of the AI director, we need to listen for this event. So back in the director, we want to make a little reroute node here by double clicking. So for this zombie, whenever it gets spawned, we want to say bind to on killed and hook us up. So what we're saying is whenever a zombie is spawned, we're adding it to our array of zombies, and then we're binding to its on killed event so that whenever the zombie is killed, that this event is going to get called. So as you see, it's giving us an error here, and that's because it's expecting us to link an event here. And we can't actually say add event or create. Yeah, we can't say add custom event like we were used to doing in the event graph because you can't have events inside of functions. So the way to get around that is to use this handy node called create event. And this lets you bind the event to a function. So now all we need to do is write a function that's going to get called whenever the zombie is killed. Oh, and one thing I forgot to do actually. So that on killed event needs to pass along the zombie that was killed. So real quick, let's just go back to the zombie. Click on this on killed over here on the left, and then it close this. And then on the top right, you can see we have inputs. We want to add one for the zombie. So hit new parameter, drop this down, and we want it to be BP zombie. We'll call this zombie. And then when we call it over here, you can see it's now giving us an error. Oh, you might have to hit refresh node if it doesn't update that parameter name. So it should say zombie like that. And so the zombie that got killed is, of course, ourself. So we'll say get ref to self and pass that in. Now back here in the AI director, it's still giving us an error because it doesn't know which function we want to use. So we need to add a function to get called when the zombie is killed. So we'll make another function over here on the left. Actually, I think we just duplicate this one because it already has parameters. So we'll just duplicate this one. We'll call it on zombie killed. And so inside of on zombie killed, we don't obviously want to do this. We would just want to call remove. So we'll just say remove item and hook that up to that. Oops, like so. And then back in our on zombie spawned, we can now select our on zombie killed event. And compile and save. And now it all works. So again, I know that was a little confusing, but basically what's happening, I'll just kind of recap it real quick. In our zombie, whenever the kill event is called, it stops the behavior tree, does all that collision stuff, sets it to ragdolling, waits 5 seconds, and then right before it destroys itself, it notifies the director that he has died and says, hey, I was killed, and it passes himself along. And so calling this goes into the AI director, and it calls this on a zombie killed event, which just removes it from this array. And the way that works is just because in the on zombie spawn event, whenever a new zombie is spawned and added to our array, we bind to that on killed event so that we know when it gets called. So hopefully that's not too confusing. So the next thing to check if this is working, let's just go to the event graph real quick. And inside event tick, we're just going to print out how many zombies are currently in the world. So event tick, we'll say zombies, length, and this is just for debugging. You don't have to add this, but it's a good thing to add to make sure everything's working correctly. And we want to say print string. And then if we drag off of this and say append, we'll create an append node so we can kind of combine this. So the bottom node we want to drag in our length, and the top node we want to set to num zombies, like a colon or something. Save all, save all. So now we need to add our AI director to the world. So if we come back here, just drag in your director. It doesn't really matter where you drag it, just drag it somewhere into the world. And then we're going to go ahead and hit play again. And you can see at the top left, it's printing out a bunch of ones. Let's actually go ahead and change this to be 0 for the duration so it doesn't spam it like that. So you see, you can see it prints out 1. And if I kill this zombie, you'll see it stays at 1 until he actually gets deleted from the ground. So you can see it's still 1, still 1, still 1. And then it gets deleted, and you can see the number of zombies is 0. And this is a really efficient manner to keep track of the zombies. Like, it's not continuously having to check how many there are. It gets updated whenever one gets deleted. So it's very efficient. All right, so now that we have our AI director keeping track of how many zombies we have, the next thing we can do is start working on our Horde spawners. So I'm probably going to go ahead and just do that in part 3. So I'll see you in part 3.